Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm gonna show you yet another mock from the latest Lord of the Rings TV show, Rings of Power. If you follow the channel, you know last week I already built one mock with Galadriel making some crazy moves on the horse. While for this one, I decided to go back to episode 1 and to build in micro scale. I'm not gonna give you any spoilers, I'm just gonna give you a brief introduction to the scene and then we're gonna jump into the building itself. In episode 1, Galadriel has been traveling and fighting for many years as she's coming back to Lindon, which is the kingdom of the High Elves. In one of the scenes, one important ceremony is happening. I'm not gonna tell you why is that ceremony happening because I don't want to spoil the show if you haven't watched it yet. But anyway, under this big tree, this very important ceremony is happening for Galadriel and her men, her troops. So let's talk a little bit about the techniques and the scale. Of course, here the main color scheme is this yellowish orange one, which I was very happy to do because is a color that I don't use much in my mocks, and I have some of these leaves that now I completely run out because everything I have is being used for this mock. So of course, to recreate the scene, I had to create it in micro scale. So for this size of the tree, everything has to be scaled compared to that. So I started by building the figures, which are not really the micro trophy kind of thing, but it's more like a stack. Usually these are like can be 3 or 5 plates tall. Here I went a little bit bigger. So what I created is one cylinder with a few additional parts, and then we have one rounded plate for the face, one for the hair, and one I've been using rings, so I think it's fitting the theme well. Rings of Power TV show, and we are using the rings over here. In this case, these are sort of some laurel golden crown kind of thing. Anyway, these men, these soldiers, are actually kneeling down. So that's why I added this slope at the back. They are wearing actually a long rope in white, so I think that is sort of working. For Galadriel, I decided to make her a little bit more standing up, so I added one modified brick and then one of these tooth piece at the back. And then over here also we have some kind of helmet. Actually, they are all having their helmet in their hands in the show, most of them, but I couldn't connect at this scale. But there is also a scene where you can see there is one of these helmets on the ground. So I think these antenna base work out pretty well, even if it's the same color scheme as the floor. But I think it kind of gives the idea. We have 2 more characters over here. This is some sort of assistant that is actually carrying all these crown kind of things. And over here we have the Eye King. He's wearing gold, and I use this modified brick to sort of hint like if his arm is pointing towards the sea behind. So these were the characters, and then after I got the scale more or less of those, then I can figure it out how big I wanted this. I create a base with just some plates, and then I started to lay down the tiles for the river. So that's the first thing I did, because then the rest of the build is kind of lift up a little bit higher compared to the river, of course. After that, I start to work around it with some wedge plates. You can see them here. As I say, the color scheme is mostly this yellowish orange color, plus quite a lot of sand green, little bit of gray, little bit of other greens here and there. After I build up this edge, this surrounding area, and of course the frame of the vignette, I had to build this. This is some sort of circular shape, so I managed to use these curved bricks, and it also gave me the opportunity then on the side here and over here as well to add a little bit of texture, a little bit of detail. I tiled everything up, and over here I had to create some sort of, in the show there is some sort of big plate, big dish, I'm not sure exactly what was the purpose of that, but I managed to recreate it here. Not very happy about this being in 10, but that's the only one I had, so I couldn't use any other color for that. Anyway, I think it works pretty well anyway. And then here you can see I extended a little bit over the frame here, and then the water is gonna slope down into the waterfall. Later I'm gonna give you a better view on the outside. Over here I have a few arches, because here we have a path that then lead up to some stairs in the show. So here I made a good use of these corner triangular tiles, and also this shield one that are always very useful to create this diagonal path. And I also use some masonry brick over here, a little bit of slopes, cheese slopes there on a modified brick to give a smooth corner as well. And I build up a little bit, because this then is gonna slope up, so I build up a little bit more terrain over there. As I said, here is all tiled up with some jumpers for the characters, a little bit of sand green here and there, and I also create a couple of stairs in the show. They are actually like a circular kind of stairs. This is the best way that I could find to achieve that. And then I had to start to build the tree, which is the main attraction. I started with some tiles and wedge plates and stuff like that at the bottom, again sand green and reddish brown, to create the base of the tree. And then I started to build up the roots. For that I use some tiles, I use some curved slope, and some of these that work actually pretty well at this scale. You can actually use it for branches as well on smaller kind of trees, but I think over here they work pretty well. I had a few of those all over to create the roots of this tree. Then I just build up. I use wedge bricks, I use slopes, I use a rounded brick, a little bit of everything, just to give this shape, to make it quite organic and to being inclined towards the right. You can use inverted slopes, of course, the regular one like this one, but also the curved one like this one that we have at the bottom, and I think it works out pretty well. Maybe a little bit too sharp on the left side, but if you have a little bit more slopes and curved slopes, you can do it a little bit better, I think. Over here I try to build up a few rocks, because this is actually sitting on some rock formation and going up higher. Maybe I should have bring these rocks a little bit taller, but anyway, let's remember that this is micro scale, so we need to do a little bit of compromise in order to make this work. Over here, very simple, I built two of these big structure. This one is a smaller one that is wedged in between those slopes, another branch over there, and then here I have another big combination of these big leaf pieces with flowers and with these smaller leaves in yellow and orange, and I think the color scheme work pretty well. Now let's talk about the rest of the build, which is actually the back side. Here we have actually two sort of waterfall that come down on the side. This is actually sitting on a big cliff, so here we should have a big two big waterfall coming down, and then all the rocks building up over there. Of course, here I'm just building the top. This is also a point of view that we see in the show. So we have the camera coming from this side with a big waterfall at the back, and then we zoom in towards this ceremony, and then we can see all the big forest of sort of big tall kind of birch trees at the back. So this is actually one of the point of view in the show that is pretty cool. I highly recommend you to check it out. And also here I build up a little bit of this back side. Is actually all on build sideways. So what I have here is all the flat tree, modified bricks here, with a little bracket here I added a little bit of extra detail. So everything here is connected sideways, and then here I have this mix of slopes in different colors, very simple, that is gonna connect sideways and create an interesting shape, an interesting pattern, interesting texture over here at the side, at the back of the tree. Anyway, as I said, from this point of view in the show, you see all the forest at the back, and that's what are those white trees for. They should be bigger, for sure they should be taller, but I literally use all the white parts that I have. I use all of these rounded bricks, I use all these candle pieces, everything I found, even antenna piece I use. On top of those, I added this white stem with different kind of flower. So these are the old kind of flower, these are the a little bit more recent ones, and I even use some stars over there as flowers. In the middle, I added another one of that small bar with 3 little branches coming out. I used that before in some micro scale build. I don't have it in white, but I think in 10 it will work out okay anyway. Even if these are at small scale, I think it work out pretty well because they kind of frame a little bit the scene. I would just love to have them a little bit taller, or maybe to have 1 or 2 extra ones to give a little bit more immersive scene, but still leaving the space to have a nice view at the center. One more thing I wanted to add as well is that I tried to create a small kind of tree bush over here. It didn't work out so well, but I leave it there because I like the idea. So I use some white parts and some minifigurines to give the idea of some sort of smaller growing tree or some kind of bush in the same color scheme. And the last thing I added was to add actually the flowers on the floor and on the river. So what I did actually was to add some of these loose pieces a little bit around the place, on the water as well, to give a little bit of extra detail, and I think it worked out pretty well. Let me know what you think, guys, about this mock in the comments down below. Keep a lookout on the show if there are maybe more scenes that I will be able to recreate, always remembering that parts are limited and I don't have actually a proper minifigure from the Lord of the Rings. Maybe sometimes I will be able to recreate some of those with the parts that I have. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Ciao ciao.